agus fáilte go trí seascad in program ag BBC ALBA had all go críos scéalchain an Boireannaich Ingantach an is sùil spórs na ALBA. Is me Iona Ballantyne agus ha mi tolaite ra go bhfuil manager Chlann-Nighean is Boireannaich Rangers Amy NicDhòmhnaill ar as colrooms in studio. Our program na heiche noch fear mi hín is Amy sùil gan ghèam ag mullach an SWPL at their Glasgow City Agus Rangers. Ha manager Caley Thistle Inbhir-Nis Karen Mason bruin Manaidsear son skippe éiche san championship buhua. Agus bí an lùth-chleasaiche ALBA Ali Crawford géiscein mun tarvachas éiche ag ghèamachan CrossFit na blianasa. Amy, welcome back to 360.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back.
You invited me back, that's amazing.
Thanks for accepting. But no, it's actually good to have you on just now because you've had a very good start to the season with Rangers. How much are you enjoying that?
It's amazing. I think that just in sport as a whole, it felt really restricted, obviously, given the pandemic and things. So to be able to be back in the environment and be a wee bit more fluid in terms of meeting people face to face and really be able to build like a culture and an ethos and a camaraderie around the team has been great. And
some brilliant stats for your first 6 games. 6 games played, 6 wins, 2 goals conceded with 32 scored. You have got skill across the whole pitch right now.
Yeah, I think particularly in the front areas, and I love the fact that it's not just, we're not relying on a player for goals. I think that you've got players like Bheirneich Caley obviously came in at the weekend, you've got Jane, so there's goals coming, Brogan-Hay, there's goals coming from loads of different. Kirsten Riley scored an absolute screamer at the weekend, so it's great that the squad have really bought in and they're really driving that themselves on the pitch, and that's credit definitely to the staff and the players.
I was just going to mention Kayla McCoy actually, because that was a hat-trick for her. That was her SWPL 1 debut too, wasn't it?
It absolutely was, and what you probably don't know is when she scored her first goal at the weekend, she sat up and said, "Did I score?" because I think she kind of gets sandwiched in amongst a couple of players, so I don't know how she'll remember her first goal, but she definitely never seen it go in. So.
That's brilliant though, because she must be delighted, and again, that's just good for you as a squad, knowing that you've got another person in your team who can just fire them in.
Yeah, she's really brave, Kayla, and it was one of the reasons that we wanted her to come to the club and be able to do and score goals. It's one of her biggest attributes, and I think she's worked really hard and behind the scenes to get herself fit because she had an ACL injury, and I think it's always amazing when a player comes through that journey, has that injury, and then kind of it's like a reward, isn't it? It's just kind of like, right, I'm back.
What a way to get back and to start our first match with a hat-trick. It doesn't really get much better. No. You mentioned the camaraderie at the start. In terms of last season and coming into this season, I know 3rd place last season probably isn't where you wanted to finish. Do you feel like there's been a kind of mindset shift or a physicality shift? Has anything changed, or are you just totally focused on the season ahead?
I think it's really difficult, because if you win in football, you need to keep on winning. But if you lose, then you reevaluate and you revisit, whether that be as an employee or a player. You kind of go, right, okay, well, what's your individual responsibility in that, and how could you have made that team environment better? So you often learn a lot more in defeat, because people are kind of more analytical in that, and I think that we learned a lot about ourselves. I think we've added professionalism. We've brought in Tessel Meadag, Jane Ross and Yanni, and they've brought a different dimension given the experience and the professional environments that they've been in, and that kind of helps shape your culture and your ethos around about it, so that's definitely helped.
And I suppose on the other side of learning in defeat, Celtic last season was the team that Rangers that you did struggle against the 2 times that you played. You do still have them to play. You've got Glasgow City coming up first. If we talk about Glasgow City first, I mean, a clash at the top of the table. How are the team feeling about that?
Yeah, they feel like really different challenges, because obviously for anyone that watches the SWPL 1, Glasgow City have got some really talented players. Chinchilla, they've got a different kind of threat, a different style of play. So for us, it's about being able to utilise who we have throughout our squad and be able to hopefully overcome that. But at the same time, recognise that they're a really experienced team and it's not going to be an easy game. And then Celtic, you know, they just never give up. And I think they evidenced that in the Hibs game this year. I think they scored in like the 92nd minute, it was one each. And that's always the threat with Celtic. So 2 really, really tough games, but as a player, they're the games that that's a player you learn a lot more about yourself as well. You figure out where we are, they'll find out. And it's still really early in the season, but it's quite exciting that we're at this point.
Well, anything can happen, anything can change. We've seen it in seasons before, we're still seeing it this season. Is it good having the extra 2 teams in now too?
100%. I think that Partick Thistle were flung in at the deep end, which is a huge challenge for them. But then obviously at the weekend, I don't want to say a shock result because, you know, they've obviously merited it, but they beat Hibernian, and I think that just offers a different dynamic. Aberdeen coming up as well, they've managed to have some really good scores against teams, and it's just a bit more exciting.
It is. It adds so much more, and it is so good to see. You must be loving it just now too.
Absolutely. I think it's testament to all the hard work, whether it be on the pitch, off the pitch, the coverage that the game's getting, and yeah, it's well deserved because a lot of people have put a lot of hours in, including you guys.
Yeah. Well, we do it because we love it, and we love seeing it happen. But no, it is very exciting, as you say. Thanks very much. Myn beg yn dod Karen Mason deireadh manager skip Inverness Caledonian club awn. Fo hos chi ha Karen eerst is a horse at a club, agus corm a horse do Chlann-Nighean Agus yn sgir yn ysgil yn balcosio achga a lesgig. Yn is hai coed yr eerst, agus a fi geisio do 3 siasgad nu doch sy'n heichger son a club.
Ganach go Karen Mason ddiad I hain mar manager bal cosio, ac nhw dynach yn corym gydgeraf glach gie, agus yn ysg a Amazon mór a eichge sonach chlubbe.
It wasn't necessarily a choice of having to go for the job. I was kind of thrusted upon me, I would say. I've always been a part of the playing squad before then, and the manager that was in charge at the time had decided to step away. So our chairman at the time, who was my manager throughout my playing years, had asked me to then step in and take control and take charge, because if it wasn't going to be me, then probably wouldn't have been a team. So I was more than happy to step in at the time. Injury had kind of prevented my playing career from going any further, so I always wanted to be involved, and that kind of got me involved, still a part of the team. So that's pretty much how I got into it, and I've not left since. So I think that was probably 2013, 14, I think it was now. Taking it on, it was, I would say, more of an amateur setup, as much as we're not professional, but I think things are done in a lot more professional manner now. Given that the structure of the leagues have changed, I mean, we're in the performance pathway, and that's where we want to kind of see ourselves in the future. We've got ambitions of wanting to play Premier League football, so that's never changed. We've always wanted to compete with the best, no matter what team we've been over the years, and we've always wanted to perform and play against the best of everybody. So that's just something that we're keen to do now, and with that performance pathway, the structure with Caley Thistle behind us as well, it does open up many more doors to us.
Ha hopper crwy ai Karen haar na bleinchen, a keelige gewille chlubbe in nussen aatje as laatjeris er oe diev.
The competition and the depth of the squad this year is much better than we've ever had. We've got a lot of kind of quality young players coming through, and that's kind of testament to our youth setup at Thistle Girls, and also with our new 17s team as well. So there's lots of positives coming through, and that allows us to have more numbers, which is not always something over the years that we've been having as our luxury. So having that 20 plus in the squad rather than scraping together 11 for a game is definitely been a massive difference over the years of coming through. I mean, we're kind of lucky in a sense that, you know, anyone within the Highlands, we've got players that come from Skye, from Stornoway to play for us, because we're obviously the closest maybe mainland team in that sense, and they want to compete at the best. So it's not a combat, it's more when they go to university that we tend to lose them, when they go down the Central Belt and everywhere, and it's maybe not as much a commitment for them with travel and everything. But we have been lucky that players have decided to stay with us, and we've always got the bus on the way down to Perth or whatever we can pick them up. So it's not been too much of a challenge keeping players unless they kind of do go away and want to play at a higher level, which we've never had a problem with. That's always been a thing that if we want to be a stepping stone for that player to go and progress to play higher, then we're delighted to see that happening.
Hanna jew scialach yn y lentyn, leis yn sgipa ai Karen iddo hiad ghèam achga y chluich Bheir ag Parc Caledonia, agus a planich yn y náte is on tulli ghèamich yn chluich, and the hin nas animiche the days.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of how it came about, we had, during the COVID time, obviously a lot of facilities had shut down, so we weren't able to get our regular pitches at, say, the Inverness Royal Academy or Millburn, because of schools, they weren't allowing anyone in. So at that time, when we thought the season was going ahead, I'd approached the guys at Caley and just kind of said, this is the situation in. And they were keen to help us, so I'd said that if it was happening, then we could play the games at the stadium if it allowed with their season. So that kind of started the conversations, but then we got null and void, and then obviously the men's team continued as it were. So they were still keen to help and get us in and involved. So how it kind of came about was that we gave our fixture list to them, and they had theirs to compare it to. And more kind of, if we had a home game after their home game, then they would be happy to kind of have us in just with the pitch maintenance and everything. So we had that first game just last week now, and we've got another one penciled in for March time. So that's exciting. And I mean, just the buzz about the team when we were there, getting into the dressing room, which was a rarity because of our season so far. It's been like changed on the bus, if anything. So getting in and seeing the strips up on the pegs, and just walking out to a stadium with crowds in, with music on, it just entirely lifted the whole squad. And I think the performance we put in was fitting for the day out that we all had. And we were all just delighted to be able to feel at home there, and for the club to be so welcoming.
Ha Karen y Cuideachd ag Checho Mórs ha ghèam na ban an an ALBA deireadh van a háiscí chluich, agus tyfys tai úne gymach gydaid Cuideachd.
Yeah, massively. I mean, I stepped into like what was the Premier League at the time as a 14-year-old, and at the time there could have still been players at the sideline, having their cigarettes or still hangover from the night before, and that just doesn't happen anymore. I mean, women take the game more seriously, and it's not just a case of having a kickabout with your mates on a Sunday. And obviously with the Scotland squad and everything doing really well as well, that kind of shows that how much our game has progressed. That we're competing now at European Championships, World Cups, etc. So I think it's all kind of turned on its edge, and it's such a short space of time that it is massive, the difference that's been made. As we say, there's still more that can be done and that can be changed, but I think we've got a lot of good people involved in the women's game that can help promote it and keep it going in the way it should be.
Ha Karen Cuideachd ag deis mi ang adriach, ha son Inverness lùth-chleasaiche cast, agus as a Iano, Trona League and Cuideachd.
Yeah, I would love to see us up in the Premier Leagues competing in that sense. I mean, that's what I've put all the years into, to make sure that we are always on the map in a sense. Quite often, you see anything north of Perth and nobody pays attention. So it's always been important for me to make sure that there is a team in Inverness that's got a good reputation, that's got a good name for themselves, and we produce good footballers. So I think that's kind of the main aim. Obviously, SWPL 2 would be in with our next 2-3 year plan, I would say, if not this year. But yeah, definitely aiming in the future to progress towards the SWPL 1 as well.
Amy, it's great that Inverness have somebody like Karen who, when it happened, she could step in and take on that team, and she's clearly got really big plans for Inverness too.
Yeah, I think that I've known Karen for a long time, and I think there's a generation of player now, and Karen's certainly one of them, that you just have a passion to be able to give back and find purpose if you can't continue your own playing career. So, and it's amazing the support that she's managed to get from Caley Thistle as well.
It's so important to have a team like Inverness up there to be accessible for women and girls who want to get into football, who want to play football, who want to play football at a higher level. And thankfully there is Inverness up there, but there's still really talented players in the Highlands and Islands who can't even get to Inverness on one night to be able to train. So for players like those, what can you do for these talented players?
So obviously there's a Highland and Island League, but it's a league of its own in terms of trying to organise a fixture, because if a ferry's cancelled, it's a disaster. But I think for us as a club as well, we have soccer academies that tour the kind of country, and through that we've managed to identify players. Chloe Nicholson, that's now at Hamilton's there, plus we have another couple of kids that are going to be able to come down and stay with family and then get a different type of experience in the big city.
But that's what it is. I mean, players all over the country, in the Highlands and Islands, up north, further down south, they must look at SWPL and want to think, right, if I want to make it a go of football in Scotland, that's where I want to be. And a lot of that is in the central belt. You've kind of got Aberdeen, probably furthest north that we've got at the moment. So it is important to be able to see these really talented players and take them here and develop them. And who knows what could happen. I mean, you could totally have a career in women's football now.
It's just amazing that they're able to have that ambition. I think, like, to have that purpose and to be able to then combine that with studies, and some of them move down, but even without that, to actually know that, do you know what, I want to be a professional football player, and it's amazing we're at the point that they can do that in Scotland.
So good to see. And another good thing to see was Inverness playing at the Caledonian Stadium. I can imagine for you at Rangers, that's on your radar?
100%. I think that you see more and more, obviously Hibernian have just got the record. We played Celtic at Parkhead last year, but albeit it was a closed door match. But it's something that we need to strive to achieve, because a lot of the venues that we play at, the stadium's a huge part of that club's identity, and it's something that we 100% want to do, and it's definitely a case of when, not if anymore.
Well, Hib certainly set the bar, didn't they? 5,500 people attending that match. I can imagine for Rangers, for every club in SWPL 1 affiliated with a men's team who can use a big stadium like that, that's the bar set, isn't it? Smash that target.
Yeah, unfortunately we're all very competitive, so I'm sure that everyone will be trying to kind of, but that's the way that you want it to be. And I think that even if you get a cohort of people that's maybe their first experience of like an actual women's game, that go, it's friendly, it's, you know, then if you convert some of them and they become regular supporters, then that's the way that, you know, we'll be able to build a fan base. And interestingly for us, we actually for the first time ever have our own women's supporters club at Rangers, which is amazing.
How did that come about? And
they've just started following the women's team, and they bring their flags, and they've started making up songs about the players and stuff, and it's absolutely amazing to see that, you know, the women's game's grown to such an extent.
The players loving that? Absolutely loving it. They keep,
I think that's maybe why they're scoring so much, so they get a song about themselves.
How were the songs? Are there any funny ones?
There's one that goes to
You don't need to sing if you don't want to.
No, I'm absolutely not. The camera will break. But there's one that goes to Achy Breaky Heart. Not, you know, Don't Break My Heart, My Achy Breaky Heart. So they've put lyrics in that
nice.
To the song. So,
for who? What player?
Well, to be fair,
can they just fit anyone in?
Yeah, they can fit anyone in. Nice. So yeah,
listen out for that next time.
But again, something I never thought I would see, and it's amazing that they've took the initiative and they really drive it, and they're driving it through social media and stuff as well. So it's brilliant. It
just shows again just the growth of the women's game, and Karen spoke about it in there, which is quite interesting. I mean, we talk about it on the show all the time. The women's game in Scotland has come on so far in so many years. Do you remember the days of cigarettes and hangovers on the sidelines?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like, I actually have a running joke with my friends, because we used to train twice a week, and then the Sunday after the match they would all go to the pub. Some of them are still in their club tracksuit, which would be absolutely, you know, you absolutely would not be allowed to do that now. But then when Anna and Bheir at the time came in, they really like pushed it culturally, that shift of training 2 nights a week to 3 nights a week to 4 nights a week, to be able to educate players on the standard and the behaviour. And it's people like Karen and Fenella. I seen a picture of Fenella in there, and Lisa McKenzie as well. We were all in the 19s and at Scottish universities together, and like, they just need to be remembered for the amount that they've given to the game. And I'm sure that for the young girls that are playing alongside players like that, that they'll get a lot of experience, like an education from just they're past.
And we've got Anna and Bheir to thank for whipping Scotland into shape.
Absolutely, they're the ones. I think for anyone that Anna was just infectious. She started taking clubs abroad in Sweden. I think that it's a trip that everyone talks about. I think they were on a bus 18 hours and seen like a training session for 2 and 1 tracksuit, but it was to show them what you needed to be. It was morning sessions, it was evening over in Sweden, and then done the same in Germany and took coaches to France and said, you know, this is the level. And through that and her driving that side of the game, it's led us to where we are.
Good. Well, what a legacy. No more success in hangovers.
No, absolutely not.
Inis go ag an becan idir Jaalaigh. Ha deirh go leor a bhí farbateach an an spórs ach na stúlacha buach grúna gceanú Chlann-Nighean Cuideachd a seaar an till. Sin díreadh ha Ali Crawford a gceanú. Hel sinne Ali san Jamaica tá túla gain amach mu spórs CrossFit.
Han dalbrach Ali Crawford with art ide a ring an a spors uit ada hoka kama lua is figadul out na blinichen bejedig. Session CrossFit.
So CrossFit is fundamentally just a style of training, if you like. So it incorporates pretty much everything to do with fitness. So it's kind of functional fitness, and it has all sorts of movements in it. So it's not focused on weightlifting or focused on kind of cardio. It's pretty much a bit of everything, so it kind of pulls together all different aspects of training, all different methods of training, exercise, movements, and just packages it up as a sport, if you like. I found CrossFit in 2013 when a gym opened in East Kilbride, and I'd heard of it before then. And I suppose, yeah, I quite liked the idea of how varied it was, and I also liked the idea that all of the classes are coach-led, so it's like quite a safe environment to kind of learn new skills and to learn new movements. And I suppose, like being slightly on the older side, when I first started it, I liked the idea that despite being a little bit older, there was still lots of opportunity to learn new skills and to practice new movements that I had never tried before.
A dáiseach, háisí Ali amach san spór de son bhí cumal fut, agus bhean pár social to de CrossFit a córtaí a Cuideachd. Ach le tuh go bh farpa se caiiche go raibh fatamas roi a puchtaí héin go cruaí.
I mean, I've been quite a competitive person my whole life, and I think part of what I enjoyed about CrossFit was the fact that all of the workouts are a lot of the workouts are benchmarkers, if you like. So there's like so many workouts that you can do, and you can time yourself, or you can see how much weight you can lift, and then you kind of revisit the same workouts like later on in the kind of year or whatever, and then you can see progress and stuff like that. In 2016, I was 40, and when you turn 40 in CrossFit, you moved into like a master's kind of category. So I realised then that when I was benchmarking myself against other ladies my age that do CrossFit quite a high level, that I was quite competitive, and that I could probably make a wee go of seeing if I could take it a bit further.
Ba Ali is on eichting, take om asavai and na lùth-chleasaiche an eile an na CrossFit, a bhean unus the a hain. Is he a golf on yerst kun yerst, boy he a notion groim is canyoing a shared and tull, agus ghèam ag na ghèamichin CrossFit.
Because what happens after the Open is if you are in the top, by that time it was the top 200 in the world for your age group, you moved to the next stage, and that's where it's a little bit more serious, the weights are a little bit heavier, the skills are a bit more complex, and at that stage you have to have all your workouts filmed, you have to have a judge that's been on a judging course, and your scores are verified by CrossFit headquarters, so it's like a lot more serious, but still it's like you just do it in your own kind of gym environment. And the top 20 from that stage move on to the CrossFit Games in America. So I just missed out in 2017, and then in 2018 I made it to the CrossFit Games for the first time as a master, and yeah, I finished 14th that year, and I think at that time I was like really happy with my performance because I didn't have any expectations much higher than that, to be honest. Just the qualifying was like such a huge accomplishment for me, and I think for anyone, like for the gym and everything, it was like at the time I was the first person from Scotland to qualify the way they do the qualification process. So I was the first person from Scotland to qualify, so that in itself was a huge achievement. So like I say, I kind of went into the competition that year just really happy to have qualified, and then just continued with my training. And then this year I moved into the next stage category, which is the 45 and to 49-year-olds, and yeah, qualified again, and it was a slightly more successful trip this time.
Yn Bheir-Nis, uadéile thuad Ali gúna gheamich an CrossFit howlan na Medicai, agus críochríchís an darna áte, incantach. Hai launch volíon sonna spárs haar tar cuideachd lùth-chleasaiche, hadis na blianaich an ghèadar.
I think that's what's great about CrossFit. It's like somebody my age is still able to like feel as though they're like a proper athlete and have like experiences like that. I mean, it's just an the CrossFit Games is just an unbelievable experience. It's like, it's kind of like the Olympics of CrossFit, so to get there is amazing. When I finally got to America this year, it was just like such a relief to have like made it through over all the hurdles to get there. And like I say, I felt really fit, like I trained quite well this year, and I just felt like, I don't know, I had a really kind of positive mindset in terms of my capabilities, and I knew that if I performed well in the workouts that were released, then I could be in with, I didn't think I would be in with a shout to come in the top 3. I thought perhaps 5th or 6th, but yeah, it was a good week away for me, and delighted to come second. I think, yeah, I've definitely put Scotland on the map, albeit at a masters level, but for a Scottish athlete to have podiumed at the CrossFit Games is a pretty big deal, because CrossFit is a real growing sport. It's huge in America, really big like in Australia, and in Europe and the UK it's getting bigger and bigger. There's gyms opening up all the time, and like I said at the start, most people join it just because it's a really fun way to train, but more and more people are taking it more and more serious, and it's almost becoming a way of life for people. And albeit it's not a professional sport, but people train like it's a professional sport, and it's so important to so many people, the ones that want to be competitive with it. So I do feel that, like, coming from Scotland and achieving what I've achieved, it almost makes it like a realistic kind of goal for people, whereas before perhaps people thought, oh, never managed to make it to the CrossFit Games. It's almost like, well, Ali did and she came second, so perhaps it's more achievable than we think.
Amy, I love Ali's feature, and I know, having interviewed her in the past, she is so humble in her achievements. Like how she was in that feature, that is how she is in person. And it's unbelievable given what she's achieved.
Mm-hmm. I think that, like, just to have that drive and that determination, and then it's literally like, I mean, CrossFit is brutal. It's just like brutal. And I think that to be able to push yourself, and particularly like given everything that everyone's been through, and being able to like maintain that level of determination, that level of focus, and constantly strive to be the best version of yourself is amazing, regardless of what sport. But to do it in CrossFit is kind of like, whoa.
I feel like I'm laughing because the two of us are like speechless watching that. It's amazing, and that's the thing. When the first time I did meet her must have been about 3 or 4 years ago, and since then she is even stronger. She looks so much stronger back then. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was only 3 or 4 years ago when she was 14th in the world. Now she's mm-hmm. second in the world in her age group. It's remarkable to see, and it does just go to show that mindset is so important. You can do it. If you put your mind to it, you can do anything.
Yeah, but even more than that, I think that it breaks away from the kind of stereotypical what like, she looks strong, she looks healthy. So for a role model for a young girl, you know, quite often when you speak to people, they're like, you know, we don't want big muscles, but why not? Like, look how fit, look how healthy she is, look at the achievements that she's had in the past few years. So why would you not? Like, she's just, because, you know, I was kind of half kidding in whole earnest. Like, if I went to do one pull-up, I'd pull it, I'm pretty sure. So, like, it's just, it's huge, and I think that having people showcase like, she's so comfortable in her own skin as well. So for more young girls, like, absolutely go to the gym, like, do whatever you want to do.
And it also just goes to show that age is just a number. For some people.
For some, I'm not sure there's many people like that, but
it gives us hope. It gives us hope. I feel like,
yeah, I just think, like, the only limitations the limitations are what you put in yourself the majority of the time, and I think, like, we're so used to doing that as, like, human beings. It's how we're kind of, but that just is evidence that you can be anything that you want to be, regardless of what age you are.
So it's so good to see, and it's also so good to see Ali flying the flag for Scotland and up there on the world stage. And another team, hopefully, that we'll see on the world stage is the Scotland international team, who are playing next week. Are you excited to see them back in action? World Cup qualifiers? Yeah,
I think the World Cup qualifiers will be amazing. I also think as well the Sweden game is a huge test, a character, I think, for Pedro and stuff as well. It will let him see where the squad are at, because Sweden are a nation that's, like, top, but they've got top players. So I think it's just brilliant. I think that, like, the crowds, the capacity that they're getting as well. I was at the last game at Hampden, and there's just such a support now, and, like, to be a player in that environment is just amazing.
It must have been nice as well being at that game, seeing all the young kids, girls and boys, watching this Scotland women's team, and they're their heroes.
Yeah.
That's, like, when you're young, these players are on a pedestal. That must have been so nice to see all the fans there.
It's just nice that it's normal.
Yeah.
It's, like, not a big thing anymore, like, that people go and support women's football or in that, like, the national team. It's just, like, a normal experience for them, and they know who the players are, they know, like, everything about it. It's just, like, so nice now that we're beginning to normalise the attendance at women's sport, that people are actually going, oh, I want to go to that. Or, like, I even meet old guys, like, in their 60s and 70s now, that can speak to me about women's football because of the way that the game's been marketed and the players, and they've really flown the flag for that, so it's amazing.
Well, you've flown the flag too, because you've been at the forefront of development of women and girls football in Scotland for so long, so you must also be proud to see 5 of your players named in the squad.
I'm delighted for the girls because they work so hard for it, and I think, like, having experienced it, like, you know, to stand there and sing your national anthem, and for a long time in Scotland, the national team gave you everything, because it was them that took care of your physio, it was them that, like, through the Institute of Sport, that you got the elite level training and stuff. But now to have that environment within a club setting, but still have that opportunity to go and represent you'll never feel a pride like it.
It's amazing. It's so good to see, and we wish them all the best, wish your players and the whole squad all the best. But Amy, thank you so much for joining us again this week.
No problem.
Please do come back soon. Well, Sinead son and noch, in a sheachdain bhí skipper Hibernian Joel Murray colorrooms in studio. Jan Keenshach gyfel sy'n valentin 3 siasgyd ar YouTube, agus eisgain gyfel a cortogaiv. Cuideachd gaif sy'n program ghèam iPlayer a BBC. Cuideachd gyfel an SWPL hen Bheir fiag a BBC yn sheachdain, na mes Glasgow City a Rangers Bheir BBC ALBA Deireadh sa Mar sin live and dras.